The moment this news broke, it completely shifted the direction of the Iran nuclear situation, and almost no one is explaining the real reasons. Early this morning, reports confirmed that Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi arrived in St. Petersburg for crucial talks with Vladimir Putin. Within hours, the Kremlin, through spokesman Dmitry Peskov, made one thing very clear. Russia's proposal to take custody of Iran's enriched uranium remains active. This is not a rumor or guesswork, it's a formal, ongoing offer. And then came the statement that should grab your attention. It has not been acted upon. Four simple words that point to a major geopolitical deadlock most people are overlooking. Here's what's truly unfolding behind the scenes. For months, the United States has insisted on one central requirement in every negotiation, every private discussion, and every diplomatic signal. Iran must eliminate its enriched uranium, not cut it back or pause it, remove it entirely. We're talking about roughly 450 kilograms enriched to 60%, material that could be upgraded to weapons grade in just weeks. That's enough for several nuclear weapons. This isn't one item on a list. This is the key condition. Every ceasefire talk, every indirect negotiation, every political signal ultimately returns to this non negotiable point. And now, suddenly, Russia offers a fix that appears to address everything on paper. Moscow is basically saying, hand us the uranium. We'll remove it from Iran. We'll store it on Russian territory. We'll reprocess it with international monitoring. Iran keeps its nuclear facilities. The risky material leaves the country. The international community, including watchdogs like the IAEA, can oversee every step. No war, no attacks, no escalation, a diplomatic way out that prevents a global crisis. But here's the unexpected part no one can overlook. This deal, which meets all the main requirements, was turned down. And that raises the central question this video explores. If a workable solution exists that avoids conflict, meets the main demand, and calms the region, why reject it? Let me state this plainly because most media reports are avoiding the direct truth. Donald Trump rejected Vladimir Putin's offer to take custody of Iran's enriched uranium. This is not guesswork. Axios confirmed it, with a U.S. official stating clearly it hasn't been accepted. On the surface, Washington's stance seems logical. They keep saying, we need the uranium secured. But that wording conceals the deeper issue. The United States supports the objective but opposes the approach. They want the uranium removed from Iran, just not placed in Russian hands. And that small difference on paper creates enormous real-world consequences. That's the full story playing out now. While Washington hesitates, Abbas Araghchi gets on a plane and heads straight to St. Petersburg to meet Putin. That is no ordinary diplomatic trip. It's a clear message. Iran is responding. If America won't accept Russia as the solution, we'll engage with Russia ourselves. To grasp why this moment is so significant, you must look back years, not just months, to the roots of this issue. Under the original JCPOA deal that Trump left in 2018, Russia already performed this exact role. Iran transferred about 97% of its enriched uranium stockpile. And where did it go? To Russia. It was managed by Rosatom, stored, processed, and watched under international supervision. The important fact: this system succeeded. There were no major breaches, no material diversion, no oversight failures. The IAEA confirmed compliance for 3 years. The setup operated exactly as planned until the U.S. withdrew and reapplied sanctions. So, when Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov says today that Russia is the only country with proven success handling Iran's uranium, he's not just promoting Russia, he's citing a verified historical record. This isn't a new idea, it's repeating a system that already worked. Russia has the facilities, legal setup, storage capacity, and established ties with the IAEA to carry this out again almost right away. Even Rosatom linked officials have noted the transfer is technically possible under tough conditions. Experts highlight that existing coordination methods for safe movement and monitoring are already in place. So, technically, diplomatically, and historically, the solution is ready and waiting. Russia is prepared. Iran is engaging. The IAEA can supervise. Everything aligns, which leads to the difficult question most Western reports avoid: why turn it down? The answer involves power more than uranium itself. Washington's worry, according to reports, is that letting Russia handle and process Iran's uranium would boost Moscow's role in the global nuclear energy sector. Russia, via Rosatom, already holds a large portion of worldwide uranium enrichment and nuclear fuel supply. If it takes Iran's stockpile, processes it, and possibly feeds it back into the global fuel market, that increases Russia's influence across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. For the United States, which has worked for years to cut reliance on Russian nuclear services, that's a strategic setback. And to be fair, this worry isn't unreasonable. It's a logical geopolitical assessment. But here's the serious downside of that choice. By refusing Russia as custodian, the U.S. is demanding Iran surrender its uranium through channels that don't strengthen Russia. The issue is those other channels hardly exist. In practice, Iran is very unlikely to transfer its uranium straight to the United States. It's equally unlikely to trust U.S. allies like France or Japan with it. And destroying the uranium inside Iran would need a level of trust and cooperation that doesn't currently exist. So you end up with a paradox. The U.S. wants the uranium gone. Russia offers a proven method to remove it. Iran is open to discussing it, but because of who manages the solution, not what it achieves, the deal stalls. And that's precisely why today's meeting in St. Petersburg is far more important than it seems. By rejecting Putin's uranium proposal, Washington has limited its own options. The only method with a proven past record has been set aside. While American officials look for alternatives that don't yet exist, one key reality stays the same. Iran's enriched uranium remains inside Iran. That keeps the pressure campaign going. Global energy market instability continues. Oil prices stay high, and the wider conflict drags on without a clear exit. Now, view Araghchi's trip today in that light. His flight to St. Petersburg is more than diplomacy, it's calculated strategy. Iran fully understands the difficult spot the U.S. has created for itself. Iran knows Washington turned down the Russian option. It knows no quick substitute is available. And crucially, it knows that without fixing the uranium issue, the United States can't close this crisis on its preferred terms. So rather than wait, Iran is turning to the one active channel left, Russia. Araghchi added emphasis when speaking to Iranian state media, calling the visit a valuable chance for talks with Moscow and stressing these discussions matter, especially now. That wording carries significant weight. At this stage signals urgency, timing, and leverage. It shows this isn't standard coordination. It's a period when the balance of power is shifting. Talks are stuck. Washington is pausing, and the uranium issue stays open. In that space, Russia's role doesn't shrink, it grows. Why? Because, as Peskov confirmed, the offer remains active. The system exists. By showing up visibly in Russia, Iran is conveying a message without stating it openly. The solution is ready, it's workable, and available, but the United States chose not to take it. At the same time, Iran is positioning itself so that if Washington shifts its stance later or faces growing pressure from markets and allies worried about areas like the Strait of Hormuz, the framework for a deal is already prepared. Now include China in this picture, because what Beijing isn't saying is as meaningful as Moscow's words. Before Araghchi's flight, he spoke with Wang Yi. That conversation came before talks with other regional parties, revealing priorities and coordination. China had early insight into Iran's plans before others and before public developments. Yet today, China has stayed completely quiet. No comments on the visit, no reaction to the uranium offer, no public stance. But that silence shouldn't be seen as disengagement. China's ties to Iran's strategic programs are extensive. Intelligence reports point to Chinese parts in Iran's missile systems. And Iran's military tech has long drawn from both Russian and Chinese sources. Just days ago, China and Russia met with the IAEA specifically on Iran's nuclear program. That discussion took place on April 24th, only 3 days before Araghchi reached St. Petersburg. This timing isn't accidental. It points to coordination and alignment before action. What you're seeing is a stepped process. The IAEA meeting serves as coordination. Today's Russia meeting looks like implementation, and China is watching from a position of quiet influence. The nation that has already locked in long-term energy deals with Iran and holds the economic power to guide results without drawing attention. This brings us back to the core challenge for the United States. It's not merely a diplomatic dispute, it's a strategic bind. Washington needs Iran's uranium removed. Russia has the ability and history to do it. The U.S. declined that route, and right now no acceptable alternative exists that Iran would approve. That leaves basically two paths: eventually revisit the Russian option or choose a much riskier military route. Reports mention talks about using special operations forces to secure nuclear material inside Iran. But consider what that truly means. That's not diplomacy, that's military escalation. It would probably break ceasefire terms, need highly complex planning, and almost surely prompt a strong Iranian response that could widen the conflict unpredictably. It's a path full of unknowns no one can fully manage. So this is the current reality. As Araghchi meets Putin in St. Petersburg, the only peaceful way to remove Iran's uranium is the one Russia offered and the United States rejected. The other choice involves force and all its dangers. Meanwhile, conditions on the ground keep worsening. Maritime tensions increase, economic strains grow, and the diplomatic opening expected during a ceasefire is narrowing. Now, here's the part that's hard to ignore. Donald Trump himself called the uranium issue 99% of the deal. That's his exact framing. J.D. Vance said the same. So if the uranium question makes up nearly the whole agreement and the only proven way to fix it has been rejected, then this is what it means. The United States has essentially blocked 99% of its own path to a deal. That's not a small setback, that's the heart of the process. And that's why Araghchi is meeting Putin in St. Petersburg right now. This discussion isn't about whether Russia will take the uranium that has already been indicated. It's about the details, timeline, verification with the IAEA, technical protections, and especially guarantees that Russia can't simply use that material to grow its control over. The global nuclear fuel market. The important insight: these are solvable issues. They aren't impossible barriers. They are technical, legal, and regulatory matters. They can be negotiated, designed, and enforced. And Iran is in Russia right now because the larger strategic decision is already set. Russia is willing, Iran is open, the IAEA can monitor. The only missing element is approval from Washington. To be fair, there is a counterpoint worth addressing. The worry is Russia isn't doing this purely from goodwill. Putin isn't offering to handle Iran's uranium as a service to the world. He's doing it because it boosts Moscow's leverage. It grows Russia's place in the global nuclear fuel chain. It positions Russia as a key actor in any post conflict Middle East setup. From Washington's view, giving that advantage to Moscow is a real risk. That doubt is reasonable. It's based in actual geopolitical rivalry, but the real question is whether the alternative is any better, because the alternative is the current situation, a drawn out standoff, a ceasefire that exists more in words than in practice, rising tensions in vital routes like the Strait of Hormuz, higher oil prices that affect global markets and everyday consumers. And most importantly, Iran's enriched uranium still inside Iran, unchanged, unresolved, and more central to the crisis. When you weigh those results, the price of rejecting the Russian option starts to outweigh the gain of limiting Moscow's extra influence. That's the choice that was considered and declined. And that decline explains why Araghchi is in St. Petersburg today while Washington waits for another solution to emerge. Looking ahead, the next stage matters even more. Behind closed doors, it's likely not vague talk, but detailed refinement. Russia is expected to offer a more specific, updated version of its uranium custody plan. This would probably include exact transfer schedules, storage rules, structured IAEA oversight, and especially firm limits on what Russia can do with the material afterward. That final element is the core of U.S. objections, worries about resale, further processing, and market power. If this updated proposal adds strong guarantees and real restrictions preventing Russia from turning Iran's uranium into a strategic tool without wider agreement, then the main U.S. concern is at least partly met. From there, it becomes a matter of diplomatic handover. Araghchi brings the outline back to Tehran. It passes through regional channels. It eventually reaches Washington. And then the choice can't be avoided: accept the method or reject it once more. If accepted, effects are quick. The uranium issue, the 99% gets solved. Pressure on global trade routes eases. The way to end the conflict opens up. But if rejected again, results are equally clear. The conflict continues, and the diplomatic history starts to show a clear pattern. Iran showed readiness, Russia supplied a method, and the United States said no twice. That story counts. It influences alliances, global views, and future talks. And then there's China, quiet yet influential. Wang Yi and Beijing have chosen strategic silence. No public comments, no visible pressure, no open positioning in today's news. But behind that quiet is real power. China keeps buying Iranian oil, giving Tehran economic support. It has already joined talks with Russia and the IAEA on Iran's nuclear matters. It acts as a steadying element for Iran, not by being loud, but by giving Iran the ability to hold steady. In many ways, China shapes the situation without taking center stage. It's involved without seeming involved. And that low-profile role lets Iran sit in St. Petersburg today, working with Russia instead of rushing back to Washington, which returns us to the clearest picture of this whole situation. Donald Trump mentioned a phone line and a path forward, but that call hasn't come. Instead, Araghchi sits with Putin discussing an existing mechanism, while the country that needs it most still hasn't agreed. Now, let me add one more important layer. This may be the biggest piece, and it goes well beyond uranium. In January 2025, shortly before this conflict intensified, Iran and Russia signed a 20-year strategic partnership deal. This wasn't just ceremony. It was one of the broadest bilateral agreements either nation has made recently. It includes economic ties, military coordination, and strong political alignment. It avoids a full mutual defense treaty, but the depth of integration is substantial. So when Abbas Araghchi arrives in St. Petersburg to meet Putin, he's not approaching as someone asking a stranger for help. He's there as a partner under a treaty, coordinating with an aligned country. That difference changes how you see this meeting. This isn't Russia entering as a neutral third party. This is Russia being updated, consulted, and aligned with a long-term strategic partner. It means the private talks aren't only about solving the problem, they're about how both sides can best position themselves in this conflict for maximum benefit. Because Russia's interests are practical. During recent peak tensions, when Strait of Hormuz issues raised global oil prices, Russia's energy income jumped. Reports show Moscow earning hundreds of millions of euros daily in that time. That's not accidental. It's a built-in advantage. Every day, supply is limited and prices stay high. Russia gains. So the longer instability lasts, the more it financially benefits Moscow. Think about that alongside Peskov's statement that the offer still stands. On the surface, it looks constructive, but underneath lies a deeper question. What does Russia truly prefer? A fast fix that calms markets and cuts its extra profits, or a drawn-out situation where it acts as the essential problem solver, offering options that may or may not be taken while quietly profiting from the ongoing tensions? This isn't accusing Russia of bad faith. It's recognizing incentives. Russia's stance lets it succeed either way. If the deal goes through, Moscow becomes the main handler of Iran's nuclear material, grows its global nuclear role, and gains credit as crisis resolver. If rejected, Russia still profits from high energy prices and sees U.S. credibility strained as the conflict drags on. Zoom out, and China's approach follows a similar pattern. Beijing has stayed mostly quiet publicly, but its strategy is evident. China gains from steady access to cheap Iranian energy. It benefits from disruptions that reduce Western market control. It benefits when the U.S. struggles to complete its diplomatic goals. China doesn't need headlines to affect results. Its involvement is subtle but powerful by maintaining economic links with Iran and timing coordination with Russia and the IAEA. China gives Iran patience, reducing pressure on Tehran while adding it to Washington. So when you look at St. Petersburg today, you're seeing more than a uranium meeting. You're seeing aligned long-term partnerships, economic motivations, and strategic positioning coming together. Iran is strategizing with a treaty ally. Russia is weighing gains and influence. China is guiding quietly from behind. And the United States is managing all this while stuck in a position without a clear way to reach its own goals. That's why this moment is key, not just for the talks, but for what it shows about leverage, who profits from delay, and who controls the end game. What you're seeing is a strategic challenge, not only a diplomatic one. The United States pressures Iran, but Iran's key backers, Russia and China, both gain when that pressure continues. That's a built-in imbalance. It means every sanction, every delay, every stalled talk doesn't only hurt Iran, it also strengthens its supporters. And that's what Araghchi is advancing in St. Petersburg. He's not only talking uranium with Putin, he's sinking strategies. He's ensuring that in the next talks, Iran, Russia, and China move together, not separately. Because when Trump says uranium is 99% of the deal, and Russia openly offers to fix that 99%, but the US says no, Iran's next steps become very intentional. It sends its foreign minister directly to the country with the solution openly and publicly right now. This has moved beyond simple talks. This is a statement. Iran is demonstrating to Washington and the world that a solution exists, that it's ready, and that it's being discussed, just not accepted. And that's why today's meeting is so significant. Russia holds up the method. Iran stands beside it. Araghchi makes sure every watcher understands one clear fact. The solution isn't absent, it's right there. The question is who chooses not to take it. Now add what happened this weekend, because it all connects. Iran didn't make just one move, it made two at once. Through Pakistani channels, Iran offered a new idea to the United States. The concept was straightforward yet clever. Separate the Strait of Hormuz issue from the nuclear question. Open Hormuz right away, stabilize markets, reduce economic strain, and handle the nuclear side later on its own track. That's quick relief, an immediate win for Washington and allies without fixing the toughest part yet. At the same time, Iran sent Araghchi to Moscow to support the deeper fix. The uranium issue, the 99%, already has a method. Russia holds it. It's offered. It's still there. So in one weekend, Iran provided two ways out, one quick, one long term, one to ease pressure now, one to resolve the root problem when conditions allow. And here's the key. These aren't separate actions. They're one coordinated plan. The Hormuz offer says, we see your urgent needs. We can deliver stability. The Moscow trip says, and when you're ready for the hard part, the answer is prepared. It's a two-track strategy offering the U.S. options and flexibility, but Washington took neither. Instead, it stepped back, canceled talks, and said, call us. That's the divide defining this moment. On one side, Iran holds open two de-escalation paths. On the other, the U.S. isn't taking either. And that space between available fixes and willingness to use them is what this conflict is about right now. So look at the bigger picture. Russia holds one solution in St. Petersburg. Pakistan carries another in Islamabad. China quietly supports Iran's economy from Beijing, and the United States waits for a call that hasn't arrived. That's not ordinary diplomacy. That's a standoff shaped by hesitation, visibility, and timing. And right now, every step from Moscow to Islamabad aims to make that hesitation impossible to miss.